I mean, for the employee and role, you have to create the basic CRUD operation for employee. So that we will cover, because that once we will cover that, so you will be, I hope I'm audible clearly to everyone. Please reply. Okay, so we will go for that basic CRUD operation, because once you will get that idea, so within weekend you will be able to utilize that. So we are going to start with the how to create the basic API with the help of controller, then to pass the service, and then to pass the DAO layer. And in DAO layer, we will communicate with the database. Okay, so that code we will cover today. And then we will come back to the authentication. There we have to go for login and sign up. Okay. Yes, is the screen visible to all? Okay, so here we are going to cover the CRUD operation first, so later you can start. For the CRUD operation, what the things are there, like we have to start with the API creation that we will do with the controller. Okay, so you should have a, suppose you are going for employee CRUD operation. According to the requirement, you have to go for employee basic CRUD operation, right? So for that CRUD operation, we need to define the APIs in controller. Okay, so in employee service, one package should be there for controller, one package should be there for service, one package should be there for repository. Okay, except that whatever exception, custom exception you need to fire according to the requirement for that exception, you should have a separate package for it. Okay. And for the security authentication, so whatever code we discussed in previous session and rest part, like define the API for login sign up, that you will do within your authentication service. That is a different service, authentication. So related to that security, whatever part of code will be, you need to place there. Okay, in employee service, you have to go for the employee related data on. Okay, so a separate service should be there in your code, and for that you have to define the basic CRUD operation and accept that whatever requirement is there. But related to employee, whatever we will do for that, a new module should be there in our parent module, and that will be employee. Okay, so how to create that? You can go for new, and within new, you can search for a new module. Within parent, we are generating a new one, and that will be employee. Those who already created, so they don't require to repeat it. Those who are not, so you have to create a new employee. Within that new employee service only, employee related data we will pass. Okay, I think so. Already available. I need to go for a new. Okay, so our new module is added in our project, and in that module only we have to define the code related to employee. Okay, so what next we need to do? So we have to create a separate package for controller. So whatever group ID is there, for that you have to add your package name, that will be controller. Another package we need to create, that will be for service. One more package will be there for DAO, or you can call it repository. Right? These three layers will be for Spring Boot framework, right? Whatever code we will pass. One more layer we need, and that package will be for entity, means employee related entity, whatever we will have. Okay, if any exception we need to throw, custom exception. So for that exception, you should have a separate package. And whatever exception you will define, you need to store them there only. Okay. Okay, now let's start with the entity. There we will have the package, class with the name employee. That entity annotation you need to add to make it part of map it with the database table. That all thing is covered. We will go for it again once we will map our code with the database. Okay, that part is remaining. Currently, we are just going for the code, how to generate the API, then from the controller to the service, then from the service to the repository, how the code will flow. That part we are going to observe. So you already done, we already covered that how to create the employee entity with a getter, setter, constructor. It's a recommendation, go for Lombok. So Lombok will help you to define all those code. You don't require to type it manually, right? Those things we covered. So we are going to focus in this session about controller service and DAO. Okay, now the class is ready, means entity is there with the name employee. Now we will start to create a new controller in controller package, and the name should be employee controller. And this class we are going to use as a controller that we have to share with Spring Boot. And how can we do that? So for that, one annotation we have to use here. That will be REST controller. Okay, with the help of REST controller, we are going to share with the Spring Boot, like we are using this REST controller here. Okay, currently it's showing error for REST controller because related to REST controller, whatever dependency is required, that dependency is missing here. Now, please everyone, let me know what dependency we require to go for the REST API and all. Yes, reply at the time of Spring Initializer by using Spring Initializer process creation. I explained that part, right? The basic dependency that is required for REST API and Tomcat uh, embedding. What the name is there? Okay, those who replied, very nice. So this controller is available here, and now we are going for API generation. So whatever API we are going to define, APIs will be addressed for it. And these annotations are known as stereotype annotations, right? Because by using these annotations, we don't require to share with the Spring Boot like we want the object of it. I hope you all are aware with the concept of IOC, inversion of control and dependency injection and bean. So that Spring Boot is create the object of these classes. We don't require to create them manually. We will just start to use them. Okay, so these are known as stereotype annotations. So we added the annotation by this. Spring Boot will get idea about our controller. Okay, now the next one is request mapping. By using that request mapping, we have to specify the path. Okay, what path is there? Is for employees. So we are going to pass here the basic path, that is /API/employee. Okay, so whenever any request will be there with /API/employee, so this controller will enter it in that request. The same thing you have to do for department. So you will go for /API/department like that. Okay. So by this the annotation, anyone is able to get idea about this is API for employee. Okay, now from here we have to start with one by one. Now, whatever type of request you will get, whatever type of request you are going to allow the user to send to you related to employee, the same number of methods you need to define. For each and every request within your code, separate methods should be defined. So suppose we are going to allow the user to retrieve all employee details, means get all employees. So the method we are defining here, and that method will return what? It will return the whole employee records, right? So we are not aware how many number of employee records are there. So we can go for list. So that with that list, we all are aware what is list in Java. Aware, yes or no?
Collections, ma'am.
Yes, collections. Fine. So why we are using here return type, that will be list, because we don't have any idea within our database how many number of employees record are there, right? How we will get idea as a coder. It may be 80. If it is more than one, so that's why we are going for collection to hold the hold the value, and it will return the same. Now here return. Now from the controller layer, we have to pass the request, the data, the object. You can see the control of our application flow from controller to the service layer. So whatever we are going to return here, that in controller, we don't have any idea, right? That we will receive from the service layer. and service layer will receive that from the database by the repository layer. Okay, so here what we will do, that we will call a method of employee service class to pass the flow. Means once we will pass the layer to layer, means controller to service, so we will call the method of service class to pass the control from controller to service layer. And how can we do that? So for that, one object of employee service class is required. But currently we are remaining to define this employee service. That's why first we have to define this within the package of service, we have to define the method. But for the services, first we are going to define the interface. That interface will hold the declaration of all the service class method. Okay, so here first we are defining one interface that will hold the values. So suppose one method is there. Okay, the naming convention is playing a very important role once you are working for a project. So make sure like whatever name you are passing here for the employee controller, the same method you should have within the service layer also. Okay, so here employee get employees, the name will remain same, and we just have to define that. So here we are not going to define the method here. We are just going to declare the method here because it's an interface. Either if we are going to define it, we are not defining. If we are defining, so that will be the default or static. I hope you all are aware with this thing. Fine, so that interface is going to get the list of all the method declaration. But if there any interface is there, so we required a class for the implementation. So another class we will define here with the name employee service implementation. Okay, so our new class is defined here within the same package with name employee service implementation. And within this class, we are going to implement employee service interface. Okay. And then we need to define the whatever method is there within the interface that we need to define here. So this employee controller is going to pass what? Okay, wait. Here we will use the class name that will be employee service implementation, and it's part of separate package. So we need to import it from employee service. Fine. And another point that we need to observe, like this is a service class. So one annotation we need to have here, that will be service annotation. By this, Spring Boot will get idea this class is a service class. So from employee controller to the employee service, we have to pass the control. How we will do that? So we will use this object of employee service class. We are not creating object. Object is created in IOC container. We are just going to use it. So we will use whatever object is there of employee service class that we will use here. And by using that object, we will call the method. That get all employees. Right? So whatever that method will return, that we are going to return to the client. Maybe the record is there or maybe no record is there for employees. So for that, you have to implement the custom exception concept. Okay. Now I'm just first completing that all flow, and then we will go for the detail how to do it. So this is related to employee. Now this get employees is there, means this method is going to return the employee record. So whenever the request will be there, suppose the client want to retrieve all the employee records. So this method will there to go for execution. But how we will share with Spring Boot, like whenever you will get a request for all employees, you have to go for this one. So for that, it's a get type request. So we have to map this method, not the method, we have to map this request with the method, not the method with request. Okay, so get mapping. Whatever request will be there, it should have a base path like API/employees. Okay, and after that, if you want to add another, so you can merge. base path will be all time /API/employee. After that, whatever you need to pass, like we are passing here get employee. So the whole path will be /API/employee/get employees, like that. Okay. So the whole path we are passing here. Fine. Now this method is mapped with this path. Whenever request from the Postman for the testing purpose, you will pass the request for this API. This method will go for execution. And within that method, we are calling the method of service layer. And by this, the control will be passed to the service layer. And from that service layer, we have to pass the control to the repository. And how can we do that? So for that purpose, we need one object of employee repository interface. That repository will be responsible to communicate with the database, right? Sometimes you can call it employee repo. We are remaining to define it. Now go to repository package and go for new and go for interface. And that interface name will be employee repository. Okay, now this interface will behave like a repository for employee. That's why we have to make notation. Repository, okay. And this employee repository must need to extend JPA repository. And that JPA repository is going to hold generics. The first parameter, you need to pass the class name for which you want to use this repository to perform the operations and the data type of your primary key. So that is integer, whatever is there that you have to pass. Okay. So please everyone try to implement that. Okay, now it's showing error for JPA repository. So any idea why it's showing error here? Because for the rest annotation is working properly. Now for the JPA repositories, it started to show the error, like it's not aware what is JPA repository. So any idea why it's showing here? Yes, everyone. Is there any idea why it's not allowing me to go for JPA repository? Showing syntax error. I hope it's clearly visible to all. Say showing error for JPA repository. Yes, it's JPA. Data JPA dependency is missing. Yes, we have to add the dependency for it. Good. And for starter JPA, we should go right because whatever a Hibernate ORM tool we require, that will be implemented there by default. Means we don't require to go for JPA and Hibernate related dependencies separately. Hibernate will be there by default. So related to Spring Boot, we have to go for dependencies with this starter. Once we are going for dependencies, so sometime the conflict may be for the versions, whatever dependency we are using for the versions. So within your pom.xml file, just enclose that dependencies with the dependency management annotation tag. So it will help you to maintain the dependencies versions. Okay. So we need to pass here the Spring Boot data JPA. Once it is here, so at bottom you can observe like it started to make the dependency available, and then it's going to build our code again. And now let's try for a JPA repository. Wait for building. JPA repository is available for it. We are going to extend. It's a predefined interface in Java, except that JPA CRUD repository is there, pagination is there. Means JPA repository is very helpful for us because related to whatever project you are working, the basic CRUD operations are mandatory, right? You have to allow for create record, update, read, delete. But for that, you need to define the methods for each and every function. Okay. But once we are working with JPA repository, so that Spring Boot is playing a very helpful role. It's going to ask you just extend the JPA repository here, and related to basic CRUD operation, you don't require to write a single line of code, not even a single line of code. Even you don't require to call the method here. You don't require to call the method here in repository, not even single line of code in repository. From the service class, you will call the method, and that internally it will it will, like, for example, you are calling the save method, for instance. So it will convert the method into Hibernate will insert query, and it will pass it to the database server. So for basic CRUD operation within the repository, we don't require to type any line of code. No required to declare the method, define the method, nothing. Just create one interface in repository package and extend that JPA repository, and the generic you need to pass. The first will be class name for which you want to use the repository. And why it is required here? Because we are passing the class name. So by using this class name, JPA repository is going to get idea about the table. So that class is mapped with a particular table with name employee. So on that employee table only, you want to execute the queries. Okay, so for that purpose, because within your package, multiple entities are there, you need to specify the class name, and that class name is mapped with a database table. So with that, JPA repository will get idea like whatever CRUD operation you will ask to perform by calling the method. So on this particular class table, they need to perform the query. Okay. Second, we are passing that will be the data type of your primary key. So if you remember, so we covered that like whatever unique identifier is there in your code, number of properties, just go for that and use it as an primary key. And that's why we need to pass the data type. Now, it may be long, it may be integer, but normally we are going for integer. So this is how the repository is created. So what happened till now? Whatever we are passing from here, that basic CRUD operation. So within this service implementation class, now the repository is available, we need to import it here. And then what we will do by using that object of employee repository, we will call the method. Now see, within our database, repository class, we don't interface, we don't define the method there. From the repository service layer, we are calling the find all method. So that find all method we are calling by using the repository object. But within your repository interface, no method is defined here. That means the JPA repository is allowing us to go for basic CRUD operation without writing a single line of code here. So don't be confused, like here we are using repository object to call the method, but no method is available here. Then we are calling to which one? We are calling the internal method. So Hibernate is going to handle all these things. By calling the find all method, we will get all employees record, whatever will be there. We can get nothing because if no record is there in employee table, so we will get nothing. That nothing you have to handle with the help of custom exceptions. Okay, that time, see, whenever any request you will get to read the data, to create, to update, to delete. Every time there is a possibility of exception. You ask you like return all the employee record, list out all the employee record here, but in employee table, no record is available. So you will just do what? You can't keep it blank. You have to throw a proper message. That message will be your exception that you can do with the concept of exception handling. Okay, so either you will return the employee's record or you will return through the exception. The same thing for insert data. If user is going to ask you to insert a new record, maybe any issue is there and that is not working properly. So you are not able to insert the record. So you have to throw the exception. That will be again a custom exception. Normally for insert, if everything is working properly in your code, so you will be able to insert the data. For update and delete, So update and delete concept is same. User is asking you to update the record. User is asking you to delete the record. So before performing the update and delete operation, you need to check whether the employee record is available in your database or no. If it is not there, so you can't update it, you can't delete it, right? So in both cases, if record is not available, so for the update operation, for the update request and delete requests, you have to send a custom exception. The message will be there on a screen, no such record found. Okay, so that all things you need to handle with the help of exception. And for that purpose, whatever custom exception you are going to define, that will be part of exception package, right? So suppose we are going to define like no data found. So one class you need to define, that will be custom exception class. No such data found exception, that is custom exception. Within the exception package, we are defining a class. No such data found, and that class is going to extend runtime exception. Okay, so by this runtime exception, user will get idea, okay, I mean, whatever record we are expecting, that is not there. So in that case, you have to pass the exception. So by this, we are going to define this exception. If data is not available there, so that only exception you need to throw it. Okay, so is it clear? Till now, yes, no, reply, so I will get idea. Now the next, we are going to allow the user for the insert. They are asking to insert a new record. So we are going to define a method, and that method will be mapped with the annotation. So post mapping. Okay, and that post mapping annotation will have a separate path. So you can have any path or not, that depends on you. And that method is going to return what? Okay, now one more new thing I would like to mention here, like here we are returning employment. So whatever record user is going to ask you to return, insert, the same record after inserting that record in your database table, the same record you will return to the employee as a newly created record, right? So for that, whatever we are returning as a response, that we are going to enclose with the response entity. Okay, so as a response, we are going to return one employee record. And within that, we need to pass the method, means whatever user is going to pass as with the request, whatever user is going to pass, okay, they will ask you to insert a new record, right? Means that new record they will share with you. So how we are going to get that record? What user is sharing means the data with the request they are going to share. So that data is part of a you can say a bunch, and that we are the bunch we are knowing as a request body. Within that request body, the actual data will be there. So user is asking you to create a new employee record. So that new record they will send with the request. How we will collect on server that request data. So by using that request body annotation, we are able to hold that values within one employee object. So what the request is holding, that value is related to employee, right? So that whole value we are going to store in one employee class object. The same thing you have to do for, suppose you have to go for department. So that request body annotation we will use here to retrieve the data, but that whole data is related to department. That's why you will hold the data within one object of department class, right? Now, whatever data user is passing here as a request, the same data we will pass as a parameter to the service layer method. Okay, so currently it's showing error because we are remaining to create the method. So it's going to suggest you to create a method here within the service layer. Okay, so response entity is going to return whatever we are going to call here. Fine, now let's go for employee service and there we will define the method. And within the implementation, we need to implement that method. Okay, now whatever we are going to get here within the employee controller, that object, that we need to pass here, like the parameter will be one employee class object. Okay, and once we are defining this method, so whatever record we are going to get from the particular, that we are going to add here within the save method as a parameter. And that save method we can call by using the object of employee repository. Why? Because JPA is going to pass the value. So whatever object employee record we are getting from the request body, that employee request we are going to pass to service layer, and from the service layer we are passing the record, the same object, employee object, to the save method of repository. And by this, Hibernate is going to convert it into insert query and it will pass it to the database. Okay, so this is how the things are working here. I hope you all are getting yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, so do one thing, like whatever package is there employee, just try to go for any method, a single method. So you will get idea how to do, and at the same time, if any point is not clear, so you will get idea for that also. Just do that first and let me know whether you are able to do it or not. Try for only one method. Okay, once you are clear with one, so you will be able to implement for the rest also. So just go for only one and let me know whether it's clear or not. And if any point is not clear, so you can share the screen. And do a little bit faster because few more annotations we need to cover here. Yes. Okay, let's do one thing. Let me finish first, later you can, because we are having this. So, okay, take a look for it and later you can go for, because we need time to complete it, right? Okay, fine. So I added one more, that is for the employee, a unique employee record. Okay, that unique employee record means not mandatory, like user is going to ask for all the record at the same. Sometime they can ask you for a particular record. So for the particular record, again, they are asking for the record, means they are looking for the record that is already available in your database. You have to do nothing manipulation on the data. That time the request type will be get only. Okay, so any number of request type are maybe get. So again, another method we are defining here, and that is get mapping. But that is for one record. At a time, they are asking for one record or so that one record, if they are asking for one record, so you will ask them, okay, let us know the employee code. So we will see in our database the record is there or not. If it is there, so we will come back to you with that record, right? So for that, they will share with you the employee code. How they will share that? So within the path they can share. So what path they will use is slash API slash employee slash employee code. So it may be like they will use the path slash API slash employee slash suppose 101 is employee code. So this is what they will use, right? And what we need to do, whatever employee code they are passing here, that employee code we need to retrieve. Then only by using that employee code, we will be able to go for the values, a particular, we can search for it, right? So whatever they are passing here, that is employee code on which we have to perform the search operation in our database. But how we will, this is part of this path, right? How we will retrieve it from this path. So whatever they are passing here, that may be 101, 102, means it will be different for every employee code. So that we are not going to use as a reset value, that we will use as a variable. Okay, and whatever user is going to pass here, that we are going to add as an part of code, where after that slash within the curly braces we are using one variable. Okay, so whatever value user will pass here, the actual value, the actual employee code, that will be stored here within this local variable employee code. And this local variable value we will retrieve here. How? So this variable is part of paths, right? That's why we are retrieving this variable by using the annotation path variable. So why the path variable is part of this path. So this value, whatever variable is here within this path, the value is given. So actual value will be stored in this variable, and that variable we will retrieve by using the path variable annotation. Okay, so the whole request we have to, means whole employee record is there. So that we are going to pass in Postman by using the request body, and that we will collect here. Whatever from the Postman we will pass with the path, so that value we will collect with the help of annotation path variable. Okay. Now next, in same way, from the controller to the service, we have to pass the layer. So response entity to pass the response. So once user will ask you for one particular record, that means you will return only one record. That's why here in place of list, we are going for only one. Okay, and get employee by ID, the method name. Whatever employee code we will retrieve from the path, the same employee will be passing to the service layer by calling a method get employee by ID. Currently, we are remaining with the method creation. That's why showing error here. One more thing that we need to focus, like whatever we are returning from here, means from the controller, that will be as a response to the client. So for that, we are using the response entity. But once we are returning something from the server to the client, so with that, we have to maintain the HTTP status also. So by using that status value, the client, means the front end or whatever application we are using, they will get idea what is there means they are expecting like you will insert the record in database, and by using that HTTP status created, we are going to ensure them like your record is inserted successfully in the database, means the request is fulfilled. Okay, they are asking you for a particular record, and with that record you are going to send the status okay. That means everything is properly there and the request is fulfilled successfully. So some HTTP status are there. You should read something about the HTTP status. Those who are aware, that's very nice. Those who are not, so just go to Google and search for different HTTP status. You will get that series of starting with 2, starting with 3, starting with 4, starting with 5. Okay, 3 or 4 series you will get there. And by that, what you don't require to learn every right. You just need to be aware, like if everything is okay, so you are getting 200. When we are getting our error status by with 3, with 4, with 5 something. Okay, so that you need to be aware. So on the Postman, once you will get the request, HTTP status, and that will start with a particular digit, so you will get idea about the type of HTTP status. Okay, so just within Google you can search for it, you will get the whole list there. So that you need to maintain with the help of HTTP status. Okay, now within the service we need to define the method with name get employee ID, and that method will return one employee record. So first within the interface we are going to declare the method, and that method will use one parameter of integer type. Go for the same name whatever we are passing here, that is known as naming convention, right? Don't go for random ABCD. This is for everyone. Like whatever methods you are defining, never go for random ABCD. You are working with a project, a proper naming convention should be there. Whatever name you are passing, even for a variable also, local variable, go with a proper name. Like employee repository, so go with the employee repo, employee repository. Employees service, so go for the whole name employee service. Don't go for ABCD, okay? Because someone is going to read your code, so they should be clear about whatever you are typing there. So have a habit to write a proper code. So now here in implementation class, we need to add the method, and within that method, what we will do? So we are using the repository object, and by using that repository object, we will ask to call a method. That method will be find by employee code, and whatever employee code we are getting from the controller layer, that we will pass it. And now it's started to show the error for employee find by employee code method. Reason, because it's not, now this method is not part of basic CRUD operation. Okay, CRUD means read all, create, update and delete. We asked for find all method. That time it was okay because find all is basic read method of basic CRUD operation. Now we are looking for a particular record on the basis of employee code. Means we are asking to find the record by employee code. That is not the basic CRUD operation. So except the CRUD operation, whatever method you need to call, those method you need to declare within the repository. Okay, so now here we need to declare the method. And method name will be C. Again, the naming convention is playing a very important role. All time you have to search for employee code by employee name, by employee email address, whatever. These employee code, employee name and employee address, these all are nothing but the properties of your class, right? Properties of your POSO class. So suppose we are looking for, like we need to search by employee code. So use that property name, accept the same name and go for the repository and pass the method name find by. And after that find by, just pass the property by which you want to find it and merge it with the find by. But once you will merge the property name with the find by word, that time you have to follow the naming convention rule. And according to the naming convention, lower camel case, every word should start with the capital initial. So you have to pass find by employee code. Okay, and as a parameter, whatever we are passing, that you need to pass in. So what we are doing here, like one employee code integer value. That is the declaration, and that's it. Now the same thing, suppose you are going to allow the user to search for the employee record on the basis of email. So use that property, the exact same property you need to use here, and go for the repository and declare a method with name public, whatever is going to return. So that will be employee record. Then go for find by and the property name. Once you will merge it, so according to the naming convention rule, you have to go for lower camel case. And here, as parameter, you will pass that email value, so that you need to pass here. And that's it. Be done with that find by email. Okay, so that find by methods are not the random name we are passing for it. It's are really corrected with the JPA repository. You will use find by, and after that find by, whatever name you are passing, that must be your property name only. And you have to pass the proper naming convention, use the initial capital. And by that, we define the method. Okay, so this method will pass a query, select a query where employee code equal the given employee code, whatever we are passing here within the parameter. So this is how the Hibernate is going to convert this method with a query, select a query where clause, if you're talking about MySQL, right? So this is how the basic things are there. Now, please let me know, is it clear or not? Okay, very good. Now the same we can perform for the update and delete. So here one update, for the update if we are going, so we have to use the annotation that will be update mapping. Okay, and for that update mapping, you have to decide you are going to ask the path variable, means okay, they will ask you to update the record. So of course they are asking particular employee code, right? That employee code record you want to update. Again, that employee code we will read from the path variable, so enclose them within the curly braces and just define one method, and it will return the updated employee record to the user, and that it will be returned it with the response entity, so that we are going to use here as a return type. And the method name will be update employee. Go with the proper names. And what is required as a parameter? So one thing is an employee code, right? From the path variable. Oh, sorry, it's not update, it's put actually. Okay, so update parameter is required, that will be employee code from the path, right? And don't forget to add here slash, because slash API slash employee code, this one. So slash and the employee code. So that employee code we need to reach from the paths. So we are using the annotation path variable. And this annotation is going to return one value that is of type integer. So that's why one local variable we need here to hold the value that will be employee code, right? At the same time, they are asking you to update the employee record. That means they will pass whole record of employee for the updation. So that whole record they will pass in the request body. That's why here we are going to collect that record from the request body. So the annotation we are using here, that will be request body annotation. And what the request body will return? Within the request body, what is there? So that is the whole employee record. That means so the whole employee class object. So that's why whatever is there in the request body, that we are going to collect within one employee class object. Okay. So this is how the method parameter we are going to decide. It's about employee update. So employee code required and the whole employee record. Employee code we will read from the parameter path variable, and the employee record we are reading from the body. Okay, now what we are going to do? So we are going to call the same method update employee from the service layer. And how we can do that? So use the employee service object and call the method. So the method name is what? It's an update employee. And as a parameter, two things are required. One is code which we want to update, and the whole employee record that must be updated there. Okay, now currently we are remaining for the update method. That's why it's showing error. So we have to go for employee service, where we will define our method. And it's going to return the employee, updated employee record, and the method name is update employee. As an parameter, the first parameter will be integer, employee code. And second will be the whole employee class object. Now within implementation, we need to define this method. Now, once we are defining this method, so as I mentioned, two possibilities, right? User is going to ask you, okay, this is employee code and this is employee record. Now do one thing within your database, update that record for the given employee code. But how can we do that? Because we are not aware with the actual data, whether the record is there or not. That's why first we need to verify whether the record is there or not. If it is there, so we will do what? We will update that record. And then we will save it again for the given employee code. If it is not there, so we will throw the exception. Okay, that I hope you all are aware with Java 8 optional class. Aware, yes or no? Okay, so let's do one thing here. I'm passing with a simple code, means without, I will just explain the logic. You have to implement with the optional. Because if you are aware, then only you can do that. If you are not aware, so read about the optional class, what is in Java, and by this here implementation, you will practice for two method, you have to go for optional class. First one is update and second one is delete. Because for the delete, again, you have to verify whether the record is there, then only you can delete it. Otherwise, you need to throw the exception. Okay, so I am not implementing optional because I will do that. So you will use the same. You have to search for it and then implement it. So by this, you will practice, and at the same time, your code will be completed. Okay. So here within the update employee, we have to use this employee code to verify whether the record is there or not. If the record is there, so we will hold that record in a local variable with name employee. How can we do that? So we will use this employee repository object, and we will call the method find by employee code. And that employee code we will pass as a parameter. Okay. Now next what? The other method will be called and the record written will be there in this object. But we don't have any idea whether the record is there or not. We need to verify. How we can verify it? So we will check for if employee not equal to null. If employee not equal to null, so in that case, whatever employee record we are having here, that employee record we will update for the given. And how? So currently in this EMP object, we are having one record that is available in our database. With this employee object, we are having the record that we have to update, that we are receiving from the request. So whatever values are here, those values we need to pass for this object. And how can we do that? So by using emp dot set employee code. What do you want to set? So whatever is there within employee code, that we will see. Otherwise, you don't require to set the employee code. Start with the rest values because employee code will remain same. So you don't need to update it. Keep it as it is. But you need to pass it because we are going to ask for the whole employee class object. So you can directly pass the employee code here. Then within this object, we need to set the first name value. Whatever value is there within this employee object for the first name, the same value we will update here. So how can we do that? Use that object and call the get first name method. So employee object means the request object first name we will get from the method and we will set it to the object. Okay, so for the same, we have to do what? We have to set the value for last name and the email address by using that employee request object here. One is working with set method, one is working with get method. . right? By this, whatever requested object is there of employee means from the request, whatever we are having, that one by one be updated within this object. And then we have to go for this all part will be here. After that, if the object is not null, that means the record is available in the database, and we will update that values, and at last by using that repository class object, we will call the save method, and within that we will pass that object. So if object means EMP is not null, that means within our database there is a record for the given employee code. If record is there, then only we will update it. If record is not there, so that else part will go for execution, means the EMP object will be null and it will go for it. Okay, and here whatever we are saving, that saved record we will pass here with that return. And in the else part, we will do what? We will throw the exception. New, no such record found. That exception we are going to throw from here. And that is part of our, we created one exception, right? Okay, no such data found. Yes, we are importing it. Fine. Okay, so this is how what we are doing. Okay, so by this update is there. Now the same thing you have to do for delete also, because for the delete, in place of calling save method, you just have to call the remove method. Okay, so this is how basic CRUD operations we covered, from controller to service to repository. Okay, that repository will perform the operation within your database. Okay, as we are remaining to go for the database connectivity, so once we were done with that, so within your database, the records will start to get updated. Okay, is it clear to everyone? Yes, no? Yes, others? Fine, so start to work with your basic CRUD operations on employee or whatever project requirement is there. Whenever you have to go for a CRUD operation, the same layers you have to follow, that no matter for employee or any other. From the controller, you have to start to create the APIs and then pass the control to the service, then service to repository, and it will perform. The Hibernate is going to pass the query in the database. Okay, so that is about CRUD, basic CRUD operation for any entity we covered in this session. Okay, so one more point, like I thought like after the CRUD operation, we will be able to cover the /login and /sign up. It's within the authentication, but the time is over. So let's do one thing. In next session, we will try to cover that also. And with the same, within the same session, we will try to configure with our database only, because the code is ready. Okay, you just have to configure with your database, and you will be able to get the records in your database directly, the CRUD operations. Okay, so in next session, we will try to cover the APIs related to login, sign up, whatever is there, and then with the database connectivity. Fine, so that is enough for today's session. I hope you all started to work on the project. Okay, so do that, and let's meet in next. Thank you, everyone.